Welcome to Bible/Chat. Jason and I are here chatting about the Bible, kinda. We're talking about Catholicism, and so
it is biblical.
It is biblical.
Yeah,
we're talking
I'm
about the
kidding.
Bible and sort of dealing with stuff. We want to talk a little bit about the priesthood. We were just sitting here discussing some topics that come up when we talk about Catholicism. One of the first things that comes up is the Pope. He's a very famous guy right now. So just want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. The Pope. I mean, the popes all throughout, like Western European, world history have a huge impact, right?
Yeah,
because the Catholic Church has been so big and so powerful. So the doctrine of the papacy and the priesthood, according to the Catholic Church, why is that wrong? What does the Bible have to say about priests and priesthood and the Pope?
Yeah, very good. Yeah. So obviously, the idea of the priest does come from the Bible.
Right.
We have the Old Testament priesthood, the
Of
Levitical
course.
priesthood.
Of course.
They did function as a mediatorial group between God and the people of Israel.
Right.
They were ordained by God to do that.
Yeah.
And they were given that role and that responsibility to the tribe of Levi. Right.
Right.
And then we had the high priest, and the high priest came once a year into the Holy of Holies, into the presence of God. Did what he did in the Holy of Holies in order to function as a mediator between God and the people of Israel.
Yep.
However, in the New Testament, that doctrine ceases, right?
Yeah.
And we have one mediator between
Right.
God and man, like you talked about in the last video, in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5. We have one mediator between God and man, the man Christ Jesus.
Yep.
He now is our high priest. And what the Bible teaches us is that he grants us access into the presence of God immediately.
Right.
So in Hebrews chapter 4, Hebrews chapter 4, verse 16, I think.
About drawing near,
sorry.
right? Yeah.
Verse 16, he says, "Therefore, let us draw near with confidence to the throne of grace," so we can come individually into the presence of God. And we do that through verse 15, just one verse up. "For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has yet been tempted in all things as we are, yet without sin." And that comes from verse 14, just one verse above.
Exactly.
"Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession." So Jesus has passed through the heavens. He is our priest, and now he brings us into the presence of God with him. We don't need a priesthood. We don't need a higher class of people in order to be a mediator between us and God. And that's exactly what the Catholic Church believes about the priesthood.
Yep.
And what that means for us is that we are now priests. We are all priests. We talk about the individual priesthood of the believer. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 9. Peter says, verse 9, he says, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood,
Exactly.
a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, so that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light."
Yeah.
So he says, look, we all are priests, right? There's no need for a priest. There's no need for vicars the vicar of Christ, as the Pope is called, who will mediate for us between God and ourselves. And so we have access into the presence of God. That's what God has done for us through Christ, who is our great high priest, who has brought us into his presence.
Right.
And what that does, the danger of that doctrine, is that it separates us. It puts a man between us and God.
Exactly.
And the danger of that is that now that person or that entity, whether it's a person or the church or whatever, now becomes the mediator of righteousness.
Right.
That really takes us back to the original video about Catholicism, about why it's so dangerous.
Yeah.
Now righteousness is not something that's granted to us by Christ individually.
No.
It's something that's granted to us through the church, who now is our mediator.
Yeah. And that becomes, of course, another false gospel
False gospel,
or a way
absolutely.
for the gospel to be perverted and the false gospel to come in, right?
Yeah.
And so we're all priests.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe next time we can talk about how we're all saints, or are we?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, saints, very good one.
Yes,
very good.
just a little segue.
Yeah,
all right.
Very smooth. Now, one other thing about
go
the
ahead.
Pope, interestingly, he's a very famous guy right now.
Pope Francis.
Pope Francis.
Right? Yep.
But as you watch, what you notice in the news is that he's sort of like shedding Catholic teachings, traditional Catholic teachings.
Can you mention one specific one, maybe?
Well, like homosexuality recently, right?
Exactly.
So it's just shedding off some of these traditional teachings of the church,
Right.
which he's allowed to do because as the Pope, anytime he speaks, and he speaks ex cathedra from his chair, he's speaking for God.
Right.
And so what he's literally doing is saying, I'm speaking for God, and God is rejecting what God said before.
Yeah.
God's changing his mind because of what the Pope is teaching.
Right.
Really a dangerous, dangerous doctrine.
Yeah. Just so many bad things can come out of that when one man has all the power to speak for God, and
Never good.
never good.
Yeah. And in our church, right, what do we say about pastors? Are we priests?
No, we're all priests.
Exactly.
We're just under rowers.
Under rowers. That's right. That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we just have like Luther's doctrine of vocation, right?
Exactly.
We just have it's just a job.
Right.
We've been given a job.
Right.
We have responsibility before the Lord as elders, but we don't have the mediatorial role that the priests do.
We're not any better than anybody else. Yeah. It's just by God's grace purely. And every job actually has a sacred element to it. Absolutely. And that Christ is our master.
Yeah, and we're called to different jobs. All those jobs have the same righteous component before God.
Exactly.
Yeah,
well,
very
thanks
good.
so much. Very good.
Yeah, totally. Thanks a bunch. Appreciate it.